Hello everybody and welcome to another top 5 board gaming video. Today's topic is all about what I'm calling weekend board games. What I mean by this is games that you would be willing to dedicate an entire weekend to playing and essentially doing nothing else. For me personally, these are games that are fairly complicated but have huge amounts of replayability where you have vast differences from play to play, and on top of that you've got just a lot going on, whether it's related to story or gameplay and strategy or any other type of thing. That said, you guys know that I love to hear from you. What are your personal games that you would love to play over the course of a weekend, or what have you played over the course of a weekend and nothing besides them? Please let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because you know I love to hear anything and everything from you all. That said, we're going to jump right into my number 5. At number 5, I've got Diplomacy, the deceptively simple game about conquering Europe. The vast majority of the time that you'll be playing this game is going to be spent negotiating with all of your fellow players about what you're going to do on your turn. The turns themselves are extremely simple, the mechanics are very easy to pick up, but the thing is that with all of that negotiation, that is the vast majority of the time sink. You're talking about hours and hours and hours of single plays, and so it's easy to get multiple plays in a weekend, and for me personally, it tends to be a lot of fun because people like to hold grudges from one play to another. That said though, it's low on the list because it is very simple, and the thing is, if you have people who either don't really enjoy negotiation or just don't find it very fun, it can really make the entire experience fall flat. So with all that, Diplomacy is my number 5. At number 4, I've got Supremacy. This is a game that on its surface is very similar to other games like Risk as well as Diplomacy, but it adds a lot of strategic depth by adding things like economic intrigue as well as things like biological, chemical, and nuclear warfare as well. So you've got a lot more decision making and there's a lot more things to negotiate around. Most importantly though, for me personally, this is on the list because in one of my old gaming groups, we would literally play this every Labor Day weekend, and we would have a 12-hour game of Supremacy every Labor Day. It was a lot of fun. It was an absolute blast, and we had a wonderful time. That said, for a true weekend game, you would end up playing multiple times, which, like Diplomacy, you can carry on your grudges and all that kind of thing, which is really fun. But is it really a full weekend? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, Supremacy is my number 4. At number 3, I've got Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. I am a huge fan of logical reasoning and logical deduction games, and this particular game series is one of the best available on the market. The idea is that within these games you have multiple stories, multiple crimes that you're trying to solve, and it makes it perfect for a full weekend of gameplay. Part of the thing is that you have newspaper articles and some other things that are published on specific dates, so you'll have access to them for certain cases. The thing is that every case potentially goes back with every single newspaper article and things like that. So it makes it a lot easier to sort of sit down and play through multiples at the same time because it's easier to remember all of the other stuff that happened. And again, you've got wonderful stories with all of the cases. You have a great logical deduction, logical reasoning, all of that kind of thing. It really makes your brain work. It's a ton of fun. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, my number 3. At number 2, I've got Twilight Imperium, in this case, the 4th edition. Now, this is a game that is made for the weekend. The fact is, it takes a really long time to get it set up, and it's much easier to sort of reset a game and redo it afterwards so that you can get new creatures, new alien powers, all that kind of thing, and sort of rearrange the cosmos a little bit as opposed to putting everything back, taking it out all the time, and things like that. The thing is that each game is going to last you typically 5-6 hours or so, depending on the number of players. It can be longer, but it makes it really nice because then you have time to rest, take a break, have some food, all of that kind of stuff, and just sort of relax a bit before you come back and play again in what feels like a completely new game. This game is enormously strategically deep. You've got economy, you've got combat, you've got government, you've got all sorts of different kind of things going on. Pretty much any mechanic that you've seen and enjoyed in a board game is somehow, sort of, kind of, at least in here. Twilight Imperium is my number 2. At number 1, I have Gloom Haven, and by extension, other legacy games. Essentially, the main reason that I wanted to have legacy games on this, not to mention at number 1, is the fact is that most of them have some kind of an overarching storyline. And the problem is, as I mentioned in several of my other previous videos, is that if you have any sort of a break between yourselves and your group playing these games, then everybody tends to forget what was going on. So what's a great solution to that? Just play through the whole thing at one time. With Gloom Haven, it's particularly helpful because this thing, like Twilight Imperium, is really frustrating and annoying to pick up and put out and put away and do all that kind of stuff. So just leave everything out and just play through it in one shot. It makes it a lot easier, and again, it's perfect for just a nice long weekend of gaming. You can take breaks in between each individual session of the game to eat and drink and just discuss everything and all that kind of thing, and then come back for the next time whenever you all are ready. Same thing, you can do it with Pandemic Legacy, where you play month by month. You can do it with Time Stories, playing through the modules or however you want to do it, but it just makes it so much easier for everybody to remember what's happening, keep everything in mind, and just keep up with all of the awesomeness that is in these games. Gloom Haven and legacy games by extension, my number 1. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this top 5 video on my favorite weekend games. Now, again, this is a bit of an unusual category because it's not something that we're necessarily wired to do or really used to doing, because playing a single game all weekend is kind of unusual, at least in board gaming. and video gaming, not so much. But it's still a fun thing to think about and fun thing to talk about, and a really fun thing to do. It's a wonderful way to really get in touch with all of your gamer friends and just have like a giant gaming binge. It's a ton of fun. I personally really enjoy it, and of course I want to know what you guys think. What are your favorite games that fit into this? Have you ever done it? Do you not have any interest in it? Please let me know anything and everything in the comments below for what you think about it. And as always, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my social media pages as well as my Patreon page. On all of those, you can interact with myself and my channel in a bunch of really fun ways. But with that, thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.